Hey guys, welcome back. Today I am showing you how I make this beautiful jasper ring. You're going to cut two 7-inch pieces of round copper based wire. This one's in the color gold. And then you're going to start with a simple weaving pattern. So this one wraps around the 18 gauge wire once. Then you're going to add the second piece behind and wrap over both, and then go between them and wrap around just the top wire. So you just repeat that process until you finish the length of the band that you're trying to make. You're going to want to keep your pattern centered towards the middle of the 18 gauge wires because when we wrap the ring around the mandrel, we're going to be using the end part of the wires to create that design. So your pattern should be centered on your 18 gauge wires. This part gets a little bit boring, so I apologize in advance, but you can gladly skip to 2 minutes and 25 seconds to get to the next steps. This part of creating the band is just a little bit repetitive. This ring is sized 8.5 when it's all finished. I wove about 2 1/4 to 2.5 inches of a design on the 18 gauge pieces. So if you are making a larger ring, you may need to weave, 2.5 or to 3 inches or so, depending on whatever size ring you're trying to make. If you're making a smaller size, maybe start at 1 3/4 of an inch or 2 inches and kind of go from there. You're just making the band to fit whatever size you need. Then you put your ring around the mandrel and see how it comes out. So basically I'm wrapping it around the size that I want and make sure that as those pieces kind of overlap, there's still a little bit of design away from the edge. You don't want it to go all the way to the edge. And that's because when you're bending out these pieces here, I don't want the design to go all the way up. I want to have a little bit of space in the middle so that way I could put the bead in the center and allow for the ring to still be the size that I need it to be. I find when you're bending the wires back straight like this, it allows for the next step to be a little bit easier because we are going to be putting the ring back on the ring mandrel and hitting it with a hammer a few times. When you hit the band with the hammer, it basically tightens all of the wires that you have woven. So it kind of locks that pattern in place and makes sure that your band doesn't move or bend out of shape as you're basically doing the next step. I think of this like you're sewing the bead onto the frame of your ring using the last 10 to 15 inches or so of that weaving wire before you cut it off. Put the bead on the wire and attach it to the other side of the frame. So you'll just wrap it around maybe once or twice, and then you're passing that same weaving wire back through the bead to the other side and attaching it to that side of the ring, then passing it back through. You're repeating that process as many times as the bead will allow you to pass that weaving wire through. When you can no longer pass the weaving wire through the bead, it's pretty well secure onto that frame and it's not going anywhere. Then you can always get started on your design with whatever swirls or patterns that you choose to do from here. For this ring, I'm going to be doing swirl patterns. When you're looking at your ring straight on, you have those 4 wires that are sticking up. 2 facing upward, 2 facing downward. You want to use the opposite corners. So for this ring, I use the upper left and the lower right. I'm bringing them underneath of the bead and using my finger to kind of curve them outward and round them so that they lay as part of the curve on the bead. And we're doing that on the underside first so that we can wrap it around and kind of lock them in place. So you want to do the underneath side of your ring first, so that way everything is locked in. It stops the bead from moving around. Everything is just kind of stationary in its place now. I use my flat nose pliers and I just kind of squeeze them around the band, and then we can snip them off. I also go back in with my flat nose pliers and I pinch everything down to make sure everything is tight and that the edge of the wire is not just sticking out. I try to bend it downward a little bit so that it kind of curves around the bend of the band, and then you're not going to get it caught on your clothes because it's not as sharp. I prefer snipping the wire when it's laying across the top of the ring because it's a more comfortable wear. If you were to have the raw edge of the wire on the underneath part where you're taking your ring on and off, it could scratch your finger. So I'd prefer to have it across the top and just angled downward to help prevent any snags. And now you're left with just these two other pieces, which we're going to be using for the top. This is how the ring is going to look. So be careful as you're doing this part and just take your time with rounding it out so that the swirls on the outer edge lay nicely with the bead. This part can take a couple minutes of just playing around with it and making sure you like the way that it lays. But once you have it down to where you want it, you're just going to tuck those wires around the band to lock this one in place. I've really been liking the way that it looks with 3 lines on the end. So when we wrapped the underneath one around, that was the first. So now we're going to be wrapping these outer ones twice, so that way we have a total of 3 lines in wire wrapped around the band on either side of the bead. I feel like describing it is more confusing than it actually is. So if you do have any questions, just leave them down in the comments and I'll absolutely go back through and try to help you out. Just remember that we are keeping the wire on the top of the band before we're snipping it, so that way we can angle it downward towards our finger, but the sharpness of the wire should not be touching your finger as you're wearing it or putting the ring on and off. Again, it's just for a more comfortable wear. But just keep going back through and pinching it and making sure everything is tight in the way that you like it. This part's also a little bit of a lengthy process for me because I kind of obsess the way that they look. So I will keep on pinching and moving the wire to make the ring lay as nicely as I want it to. Then we place the ring back on the ring mandrel and hit it with the hammer some more. Well, there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to be putting out another tutorial really soon. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.